Hi, everybody. I'm Bob Marone for Westchester Talk Radio. And once again, we are with our friends at Hightower Westchester. We're here today with Peter Lang, Managing Director and Partner at Hightower Westchester. And we're talking about the Secure Act 2.0. Peter, I recall the Secure Act when it was passed in 2019. What is 2.0?
So this is simply the Secure Act, as we've been calling it, the Secure Act 2.0, which was passed late last year, so in December of 2022, as part of the larger Budget and Reconciliation Act. So just as a quick reminder, so Secure Act 2.1 was passed, at the very end of December 2019, and it had a whole bunch of. Then the Secure Act 1.0 had been in works for years and negotiations for years with Congress, trying to get lots of little updates to a whole variety of different laws and rules as they surround retirement plans and retirement planning. So that was passed with great fanfare back in 2019, and parts of it went into effect almost immediately, and other parts are still staggering in. And now, almost as soon as 1.0 was passed, 2.0 started being worked on to fill in other bits and pieces of things that needed to be adjusted. So it is now, and again, 1.0 had overwhelming bipartisan support, which we know is unusual in Congress. And 2.0 had good support, although since it was part of the larger Budget Reconciliation Act, maybe not quite as much, but again, still passed very easily in Washington. And there are lots, and the other thing to really keep in mind when you get these large laws that are passed, they don't just go into effect the next day, because now the laws have to be translated into rules by the Department of Labor and the IRS in this particular case. And that can take a period of a couple of years and get phased in over that time period.
Wow. What about the updates? Can you start to outline some of those?
Sure. So let's start with the one that went into effect almost immediately and certainly affected some people. Is they increase the age that you have to begin taking your required minimum distributions, RMDs, out of IRA accounts. It used to be 70 and a half. The Secure Act 1.0 raised it to 72. The Secure Act 2.0 raises it to 73. That became effective January 1st of 2023. And over the next 10 years, the RMD age is going to actually increase to 75. So that's the first thing, and that had an impact, obviously, for those people that were just about to turn 72 this year. They get another year reprieve of having to not take distributions for another year. The next is they made a really big decrease for the penalty if you failed to take your required minimum distribution. If you failed to take your required minimum distribution, your penalty was 50% on top of the taxes you would have owed. They've now reduced that to 25%, and in some cases actually drop it to 10% if you remedy the mistake relatively quickly.
Allow me to just be sure about something here. That's 50% of that payout, of that specific payment.
So simply say, let's say your required minimum distribution was $10,000 in a given year.
Okay.
And you fail to take it. You're going to owe a 50% penalty, or $5,000. Plus whatever income tax you would have owed on top of that. So if you fail to take your RMDs out under the old rules, you were going to pay probably 75 to 90% of that money in taxes. Now they've cut it down significantly under the new regulations. And then the last thing I want to touch on in this segment, Bob, is talking about what's also known as a qualified charitable distribution, known as a QCD. There are two new wrinkles here. This also went into effect under Secure Act 1.0. So the first wrinkle is this year, and this year only, you can take up to a $50,000 withdrawal as part of a QCD and roll it into a charitable gift annuity, a charitable remainder unit trust, or annuity trust. And if applicable, this will count towards your required minimum distribution. The other, because it used to be the only thing you could use a QCD for was to go directly to a charity. So now they've kind of broadened that definition a little bit. And then the other thing is the QCD amount is going to be, starting next year, is going to be indexed for inflation. So right now, this year, it's at $100,000. And then presumably next year and every year thereafter, it will increase by whatever the inflation rate that the Department of Labor and the IRS pegs for this.
That's great information. Now, I understand there are some changes to the actual plans and contribution amounts.
Yep.
Talk to us.
There are a few of them. First off, the catch-up contributions for those contributing to 401ks and IRAs has been increased. So right now it's up to there. If you're over 50 and you're making a contribution to a 401k account, you can now contribute up to $30,000 in total. So this year, the contribution limit for a 401k is $22,500. Plus, if you're like me and over 50, another $7,500 in a catch-up contribution. And starting in 2025, for those between the ages of 60 to 63, the catch-up contribution will actually increase to $10,000. And a couple other little bits and pieces here. If you earn more than $145,000, your catch-up contribution must be made to your Roth 401k, which is an after-tax contribution. Now, look, even though that $7,500, let's assume it's, that you started doing it, that $7,500 is still going to be taxable to you as part of your income this year. The fact is the money in the Roth 401k is going to grow tax deferred. And when you pull it out in retirement, it will come out to you tax-free. So it's still a great deal. The other little wrinkle in here is that 401k matching contributions from companies can now be made into the Roth component of a 401k plan. Now, even though that theoretically went into effect this year, no record keeper that I know of is ready to do that yet, because it's going to take some time for them to update their software, to probably send out some amended plan documents and some other things. So realistically, that won't really take into effect until probably next year or the year after. Again, it's another little way that people can save in a Roth component of a 401k. And then the last part is auto enrollment. It allows a company to automatically enroll employees and to increase their contributions automatically each year. Employees can still opt out, but studies show that most people don't actually opt out. They just kind of ignore it. So, one of the issues that Secure Act is trying to help solve for is the fact that people do need to be saving more money for retirement. And for those that may not be aware, they're eligible for a 401k, they don't sign up. But these auto enrollment features really, you've seen a large increase in contribution rates because people are opted in and they don't opt out.
Now, when they do, if they automatically become enrolled, do withdrawals begin to take place without the employee's approval? Or do they say, hey, they enrolled me, I'll do it?
Well, no, it actually, the auto enrollment feature, the way it works is, let's say you're auto enrolled in at usually a 3%. That 3% is going to come out of your paycheck automatically. And typically companies that are doing it are also giving the employees a match too. So, really people need to just, if they have the opportunity to get into a 401k plan, they've got to take advantage of it. And the auto enrollment feature ensures that more people get into a 401k plan.
And nobody's opting out. That's really a good thing. Okay, are there other topics that are covered that people should be aware of as they relate to education and saving?
Sure, there are a bunch of them here. So first off, if let's say you're a younger employee in your 20s, you're out of college, and you're paying down some student debt, your employer can now make a matching contribution into the 401k plan on your behalf. So in other words, let's say your student loan payments are $500 a month. So you're unable to sign up for the 401k plan because of cash flow concerns, right? In the past, you simply, you opted, even if you were auto enrolled, you opted out and you simply weren't contributing and you were losing out on your company's match. Now, if you can demonstrate to your employer that you're actively paying off a student loan, your employer can make a matching contribution into your 401k plan while you're doing that. So that's a real benefit to a younger employee that's doing it. The next one, which I think is really great, is leftover 529 plans, right? People always have a fear of, what if I don't spend down all of, my son or daughter's 529 plan money? What am I going to do with the leftover money? Well, ultimately, at the end of the day, you were really left with one primary choice, which was you pulled the money out and you paid tax and potentially a 10% penalty on whatever was left in the plan. Now, under the new law, you have the ability to convert up to a maximum of $35,000 of kind of, I'm going to call it leftover money. And the money needed to be the plan needed to be open for at least 15 years. And I believe the contributions needed to have been made at least 5 years ago. So they put some barriers on there to prevent somebody from making a large contribution to a 529 on their kid's behalf and then allowing the child to flip it into a Roth. So it's not like you can just throw money into a 529 and convert it in a month. It had to have been there for years. So it's got to be an aged deposit, so to speak. And so let me just give a real life example. Look, I've got a daughter who's now a junior in college. My guess is we'll probably have a little bit of leftover money in her 529. So when she's done with college, and presumably if she doesn't go to grad school, at some point I'll say, okay, we're going to open up a Roth account for you and we're going to convert what's left and put it into the Roth. So now she's going to be 20 something years old and have this nice little extra kick into her retirement account. It's tax-free out of the 529 into the Roth. And it's now going to grow for her and become a nice little nest egg, 30, 40 years down the road when she's getting ready to retire. This feature doesn't start until January 1st of next year.
Now, could she have used that for graduate school? She could have, correct?
Absolutely, she can. But again, if let's say there's, $10,000 or $15,000 left over, that becomes a nice little option for her.
Wow. I like that one about the 529 plans. That's some real thought went into that.
Me too.
Speaking of thoughts, yeah, I bet. Any closing thoughts, Peter?
Yes, there is, again, this law is another massive law. So there are, I'm going to say a whole plethora of changes as it relates to corporate retirement plans. Far too many for me to get into here, and some of them are very nuanced and complicated. So for those of you that do have some sort of or are involved in a corporate retirement plan, you need to get in touch with your providers or your consultants to really speak to them to go over how the changes may affect the plans in place. And again, many of these changes for corporate plans won't take effect for a couple of years as the rules get written. In closing, I would say, look, I think both Secure Act 1 and 2 did a lot of things to update retirement planning for people. And again, there's significant changes, and it's some of them, the easy ones are things like raising required minimum distribution ages. And then the more complicated ones are all these nuanced changes to retirement plans. So it's going to take a little while to unpack this stuff. So, pay attention, read, keep up to date. We do. That's what my job is. And so, we're ready to help our clients help figure out where they can take advantage of some of these new rules.
Peter, once again, I think you hit it out of the park. And we've been talking with Peter Lang, Managing Director and Partner at Hightower Westchester, about the Secure Act 2.0, what it means to you and your retirement plans. Thank you very much. I'm Bob Marone for Westchester Talk Radio. And on behalf of Hightower Westchester, thank you so much for listening. And Peter, thank you again. Have a great day.
You're welcome, Bob.
HighTower Westchester is a group of investment professionals registered with HighTower Securities, LLC, member FINRA and SIPC, and with HighTower Advisors, LLC, a registered investment advisor with the SEC. Securities are offered through HighTower Securities, LLC. Advisory services are offered through HighTower Advisors, LLC. This is not an offer to buy or sell securities. No investment process is free of risk, and there is no guarantee that the investment process or the investment opportunities referenced herein will be profitable. Past performance is not indicative of current or future performance and is not a guarantee. The investment opportunities referenced herein may not be suitable for all investors. All data and information referenced herein are from sources believed to be reliable. Any opinions, news, research, analyses, prices, or other information contained in this research is provided as a general market commentary. It does not constitute investment advice. Hightower Westchester and Hightower shall not in any way be liable for claims and make no expressed or implied representations or warranties as to the accuracy or completeness of the data and other information, or for statements or errors contained in or omissions from the obtained data and information referenced herein. The data and information are provided as of the date referenced. Such data and information are subject to change without notice. This podcast was created for informational purposes only. The opinions expressed are solely solely those of Hightower Westchester and do not represent those of HighTower Advisors LLC or any of its affiliates. HighTower Advisors do not provide tax or legal advice. This material was not intended or written to be used or presented to any entity as tax advice or tax information. Tax laws vary based on the client's individual circumstances and can change at any time without notice. Clients are urged to consult their tax or legal advisor before establishing a retirement plan.